Welcome to the Provo Library Podcast. My name is Erica Hill, and I'm the Community Relations Manager.
I'm Carla Gordon, and I'm the Library Director.
And we are here in a new location, a new version of the same location. Though if you're listening to us, we're here from Hawaii.
We're not.
No, we're not.
That would be nice.
Slightly more tropical.
Though, this podcast does feel a little bit more like a vacation because we've kind of done some heavier topics the last few, and we're just doing book recommendations. We just need, it's like comfort food for the soul. We just need to talk about books. This is being recorded before our Truth and Taxation meeting next week, so we don't know what's going on, and we're still kind of stressed out about it.
The next podcast, we're coming to you from the floor of Carla's office. Just kidding, it's going to be great.
It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine, but we did feel like we wanted something a little bit lighter for our souls and for yours.
And, if I'm honest, shorter.
And shorter.
Not that you don't love listening to us for hours. I mean, someone just recommended that we play our podcast on a continuous loop in the library.
We shouldn't.
No.
We shouldn't.
No.
This is completely voluntary.
Maybe we are best in small doses.
I am 100% sure we are best in small doses.
Our shorts do better
than our long episodes. We're going to keep it brief, but we're going to keep it fun.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about really good books. So we're doing our recommendations out of a fancy red hat.
Fancy red hat. Yep. Okay. You want to do us the honors?
I feel like last time we got rid of all of the genres we hated.
Right?
That we didn't even want to put in here. Yeah. Rom-com.
Rom-com.
This is actually Erica's specialty.
My favorite. It's so good. In fact, I had to edit things out. I'm going to try and think about things that I haven't already recommended on this podcast. And if I'm looking off camera weird, it's because I have notes there.
Well, and I have notes on camera. So
yeah.
Do you want to think about it and I'll give mine?
You give yours, and then based on what you say.
My first, most favorite rom-com that I remember reading was Can You Keep a Secret by Sophie Kinsella, and basically just Sophie Kinsella.
She does belong in this.
She does. Some of her stuff veers into the chick lit, and we do have somewhat small and not heated debates about the difference between rom-com and chick lit.
I don't really think I know the difference, if I'm honest.
I feel like the difference is that with a chick lit, it's more about the development of the female character. Like, she has an issue, and sometimes there's a little romance on the side, but rom-com is about the relationship.
I'll take that.
So Can You Keep a Secret is about a girl who is on an airplane, and there's a stranger, attractive man next to her. Think of this as the Hallmark movie of all books. That's the rom-com. Anyways, lots of turbulence is going on, and she thinks she's going to die, and so she grabs the hand. I think she grabbed his hand, but she grabs him, and she just starts spewing forth all of her secrets. I'm dying. We are all dying. I just need to get this out. And she just says everything, and then they don't die. They promptly do not die. Everything's fine. And then she lands and goes to work, and the guy that was sitting next to her is her new boss. And chaos ensues. It's so cute. Sophie Kinsella just has very cute, relatable characters. Funny things happen, but it's not so outlandish that you're overwhelmed by it. It's just cute. They're just always fun. I always look forward to Sophie Kinsella's.
They are really good. I went through, based on your recommendation, actually. I started with My Not So Perfect Life, and then was like, well, this was great. Let's read all of them. And so, have I at one point in my life ranked them? Yeah, I have. There's one that I really don't like about a married couple.
Yeah,
that one's just weird.
That one's weird.
But
everyone can have an off book.
Yeah,
Mostly Sophie Kinsella's great.
She is, and I had I've Got Your Number on my list as one of the things. I'm not going to talk about that one.
Don't talk about that one.
I'm going to talk about Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. Have you read that one?
I haven't.
It is so good, especially, I don't know that it would hit a Gen Z reader the same way that it hits somebody who remembers when email was a new thing.
Oh, no. I think I did listen to this. Okay.
It's so good. It's so cute. So basically, there's a company, and there's a guy whose job it is to surveil the email of all of the employees that are working there, which is inappropriate, absolutely. But yeah, he's like, because he's supposed to make sure that they're not using email inappropriately and all of these things. But he ends up getting kind of attached to this email chain between these two female friends. I think they're both girls. But anyway, he falls in love with one of them just reading her emails. And then there's a point at which he's like, I've got to do something about this. And it is so adorable. I love it. Quick pitch for my other favorite, The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. Really almost anything by Beth O'Leary is great, although I did read her most recent one. It was fine. But The Flatshare, two people, poor, working in London, can't afford a flat on their own, but one of them works graveyards and one of them works day shifts, and so they decide to share an apartment. I guess really I like these ones where people fall in love from afar. Because basically they fall in love through Post-it notes. So you go back and forth between their stories. He works at night, she works during the day, and so they've never actually met, but they share the same bed. They
leave notes for each other.
They leave notes for each other. At first, like, I don't even know if I'd say passive aggressive. I just say aggressive aggressive. Like, stop doing the toilet paper this way. Clean your stuff out of the fridge. Stuff like that. But yeah, they fall in love. Spoiler. It's not a spoiler. It wouldn't be classified as a romantic comedy.
They all end happy.
I
do. It's
I always tell Brent
requirements.
I'm like, would you believe it? They got together. Would you believe in this Disney retelling that the Ariel character got together with the Ariel character? Didn't see it coming. No.
You always see it coming.
Speaking of comfort food, yeah, that's a comfort read for sure.
Yeah. Do you want me to pick again?
Yeah,
you take turns. Okay.
I mean, I'm holding the hat, so you pick the things.
Okay. Pop economics, social sciences.
Ooh, I'm gonna go first with this one because you read so much more of that than me.
I do.
That I just don't have that many options.
Let's see which one.
Ooh, I want to talk about The Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates. It's so good. And this is going to sound weird. I did not think that I would come away from this book, which is all about ways that we can empower women. And it's sort of things she's learned in the process of working with the Gates Foundation and the philanthropy that they do. And so mostly it's just really inspiring stories of women, but also I didn't think that I would come out sort of a passionate advocate for women's rights in quite the way that I did. I mean, she just talks about how important it is for women to be able to decide whether and when to have children, and that countries that have made family planning options more accessible, affordable, all those things, tend to have better economic outcomes because it's a lot easier to fight for your rights and to work and all these things if you have control over whether or not you're constantly pregnant. So yeah, it's really good.
It is very, very good. I picked a book called Range by David Epstein. It's called, the subtitle is Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. And this is actually an idea that I read a book a long time ago that kind of talked about it and how true discovery happens when people know a lot of different things. So people that specialize in just one area of science don't make as many discoveries as people who start like looking at this area of science and then bring in this area of science, and then they can see a connection, and it makes people think differently. And so you have more going on and people working together. Like if you specialize too much, you miss out on the opportunities to think outside the box.
Which athlete does he talk? Is it Andre Agassi? Do you remember?
Don't remember.
It's like a tennis player, but that trained in multiple.
I don't think it was
Federer.
Agassi. I think it was Federer.
Like an 80s tennis reference.
Do actually think it was Federer.
Yeah, one of those big tennis players that cross-trained and didn't only do tennis made him a better tennis player.
Yeah, I like those kind of books. It's like the kind of books like Malcolm Gladwell, like those kinds of things. And I like a lot of those, but this was one that I particularly enjoyed the science of.
Yes.
Okay, something else.
Something else.
Historical fiction.
Oh.
I dare us to not talk about a World War II book.
Oh, I cannot talk about I actually, neither of the ones on my list are World War II.
Either, but I feel like 75% of all historical fiction is World War II. And I'll always say to myself, I'm never reading another World War II. I've heard all of the stories, and then I find one that is fantastically well written and a story or viewpoint of World War II that I hadn't looked at before. But there are other amazing stories throughout history that people can talk about.
World War II is such a draw because it was really, there are other, there's another World War that we talk about, but World War II was really more of a, because Asia got involved.
Well, yeah, I think part of it's also that it was nearer to us and there was a lot of documentation. So I think a lot of the stories can be found and they seem kind of relevant. I think there's some historical fiction I struggle with because it romanticizes some things and that kind of bothers me a little bit. But anyways, my book that I picked was Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. And she actually is really good. She has the Book of Lost Friends. She just did a new one called Shelterwood. But this one is about a little family of kids. Well, they have parents, but they live on the river in like a houseboat in the South. And the mom and dad have to run to the hospital. I think they're lured there, kind of like false pretenses. They go away. And then these other people come in and grab the kids and take them away and then put them in this home and then adopt them out. And it is for money. Yeah, it was this huge scandal thing where they were like selling other people's children. Like the welfare system was selling other people's children. And so it's one of those stories where...
The Spanish Civil War.
Seriously, they steal children and they just sell them. Anyway,
there's a lot of historical stealing children books, I guess.
Not as much as World War II, but there is a little subgenre in there. Like there's a current person that's kind of learning about some history, and then you go back and hear the history story, and so it kind of goes back and forth. But it was really good, and I like historical fiction where you're reading it and you're like, no way, and that's what I felt like in this one. Like, how can you do that? But they did it. There's bad people.
There's bad people.
There's also really good people.
There are. I don't know if I'm going to talk about them in my pick.
The good people?
Yeah. The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. Okay, just know, like any Kristin Hannah book is a little bit like a knife in the gut.
But lift you up.
But it's
lifted up.
But it's so like they're so good too. I don't know. There is a moment in the Four Winds and I'm like, no, I still like they were so close. The Four Winds takes place during the Dust Bowl. And even though I have read Grapes of Wrath like any good high schooler does, and I read The Worst Hard Time by Timothy Egan, which is oral history of the Dust Bowl era, I feel like reading The Four Winds, you really get this picture of like how devastating. I don't feel like we talk enough about the Dust Bowl.
And looking at like, well, all of my options are terrible.
Yeah.
Like all of my options are terrible.
Them are bad.
What am I going to do? How am I going to get it? How am I going to feed my kids? Like how?
Yeah.
There just weren't options for people.
And so it follows a family affected by the Dust Bowl and also some other social factors. And, you know, they make the trek to California and find beauty and tragedy along the way. It's really good. And there are just moments. She is such a good writer. And the writing is so beautiful. And the stories are that like beautiful, tragic. And you're like, why? You finish and you're like, why did I like that?
I know.
But like, I have a relatively like peaceful, normal life. And so I know that there's going to be things that affect me deeply. But sometimes reading those kinds of stories, it's cathartic is actually the Greek term.
And I think most people know her for The Nightingale, which is like probably one of my least favorite of her books.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
It's good. I think it was a World War II. It was like too much World War II at one time. Anyways, but then I just read The Women, which she just wrote too, which is about Vietnam, women nurses in Vietnam. And it was another one where they make me cry. The sad tears, and walk away going, oh my gosh, that was so good. When will she write something again?
Right, I know. You know what I just realized is that I made the promise that this was going to be a quick podcast, and I thought that we could do it partially because I can see Carla's clock, but her clock is stopped.
It is. I haven't fixed it.
We are doing great. It hasn't passed.
Should we do one more?
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
2 more.
Let's do 2 more.
2 more, okay. The next one is fantasy.
Fantasy.
You go first.
Oh.
I think you recently told me I didn't read fantasy, and I think I was offended.
I think you were offended. The thing about Carla is that she won't commit to more than 3 books.
Well, that is true.
So I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to talk a lot about the Wheel of Time, but if you're a fantasy, partially because if you like fantasy, you've read the Wheel of Time. I did recently complete my journey through the Wheel of Time, and it was good. I mean, it's quintessential fantasy. I am going to talk about the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. She wrote The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I just finished the 4th book. It's a trilogy, and now there's another trilogy. So it's number 4. I mean, it picks up practically, oh no, it's like years later, just kidding.
How can you have, it's fine. I mean, it's not a trilogy if there's 6.
Well, it was, and then she wrote like 17 other books, and then came back to this one.
One of my favorite fantasy books did that too. It's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sometimes you just realize that there's more to that story. And so it's a universe where it's kind of a parallel universes story, but not in the way of like, let's go and see how my choices are different. Like, there's not necessarily a version of you in this one and in this one and in this one. It's more that there are like these worlds that are stacked on top of each other like a book. And there are certain magic users that have the ability to open doorways between the worlds. And so there's romance between 2 of the Antari from opposite worlds. One of them didn't know and like magic waxes and wanes in between these worlds. The world building is top notch. There's a really feisty female character named Lila Bard. And I just always love a somewhat foul-mouthed, sassy pirate girl. So
who doesn't?
Who does magic? She's perfect. Actually, there are a lot of people on Reddit that really don't like her.
Oh.
But they're dumb.
You like her.
I like her.
I'm over here having a small panic attack because I don't have a fantasy on my list.
You forgot.
And so I've been thinking through my favorite. Like, I do love Brandon Sanderson. I think the last fantasy novel I really, really liked was his, the pirate one.
Tress of the Emerald Sea?
Yes, thank you.
That one is
this
so
is why
good.
I have to have notes. It was
See,
really
I
good.
like a lady pirate.
But also, because we just had Princess Bride, we watched it here at the library with an interactive movie, and it was very fun. And as I was watching that and preparing for that, I realized how much Buttercup drives me insane. Because she doesn't do anything. She just lets everything happen to her. And Brandon Sanderson had said that he wrote this book as a, what if Buttercup didn't just stay home and wait? What if she had gone after Wesley to save him? And after watching Princess Bride once again, I was like, yeah, she should have just gone out and found him. What's wrong with her? And it made for a very, very lovely story. So I really liked it. I know everybody's heard of Brandon Sanderson and stuff like that, but I feel like it's a very light fantasy. It's a lot of adventure.
Standalone.
Pretty standalone. There's, I mean, all of his books kind of bleed into each other a little bit, reference stuff like that, but nothing I feel like you really need to know.
Yeah, I hadn't read, when I read Tress, I hadn't read any of the Mistborn books, still haven't, but I felt it stood. I think there's kind of a like, oh, that's him, if you've read some of the other books, but it didn't. No, you don't need to. It's great. Okay.
Whew.
One more.
I need notes all the time. That's so embarrassing. What kind of librarian doesn't just know a book? Oh, look, this is like full circle.
We're going to end
We're going to end with some chicklet. So chicklet was born with the book I'm recommending, which is Bridget Jones' Diary. I mean, it's an oldie, but a goodie. the movie is very foul-mouthed, and the book is too, but I've never seen the movie, and I really like the book. So there is a lot of language in it.
Because it's British. Is it British?
It is British.
We have a different relationship with the F word than we do.
That's true. That's true. What I loved about it was, like, it is actually a diary. And so you see her inner thoughts. And I think that's kind of what makes it chick lit. Like, it's about her thoughts. And there is a little romance and all of that. But in every journal entry starts with, like, the day, her weight, how many drinks she's had, and how much shopping she's done, because these are all goals that she's trying to do better with. And so
drink less, shop more?
Shop less.
Oh, shop less.
She always needs, she had money. Anyways, it was just hilarious. But that's kind of what chick lit is like just like how she grew. She mostly grew. What did you consider chick lit?
I have actually, what Alice forgot, but I believe I've talked about that enough.
Okay.
It's so good.
It is really good.
Amnesia. It's my favorite amnesia story. I didn't think that I was collecting amnesia stories, but I have read a fair amount of amnesia stories. What Alice Forgot's the best one.
It is by far.
Yeah.
I haven't read all the books you've read, and I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
That it's still
yeah, it's so excellent. Actually, this one that I just barely finished, though, I feel like fits that definition, though it does sometimes take the perspective of a couple men characters, so maybe that's not.
Fine.
But I would say that the main heart and soul book called How to Age Disgracefully by Claire Pooley starts, so there's this prologue scene that actually happens like at the very end of the book once you get there, but it starts with a group of senior citizens and kids in daycare on a minibus getting pulled over by the police. And this woman gets on to say, "I'm here to apprehend," and all of a sudden all these senior citizens start like confess, like, "Oh, she's here for me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal all that stuff. No, they're here for me. I've been running from the cops for years." Like all of these old people confess, and she's like, "Stop confessing things. This is who I'm looking for." And so you just know. So it's a book about a group of old people and a group of young people that are sort of banding together to save their community center. But the old people so defy, and they talk really explicitly about it, like, these are not well-behaved old people. These are old people that have lived full lives and are not interested in knitting or any of those things. Like at one point, the character who I would call the main character, who's trying to like make friends and learn to trust people and all these things, are like, she's on the run from something. Like, is she in witness protection? But she, again, I love a feisty, if this were on a boat, she would be a feisty pirate character. But as it is, she's just a feisty old lady with amazing jewelry.
Therefore,
Gotten how? I mean, I'm not going to say she's not. Anyway, it was hilarious and fantastic, but also about learning to trust other people, or one storyline of a different character is learning to love yourself, different things. Claire Pooley does that really well. So there we go.
Awesome.
Are we done with recommendations for today?
I think we are.
I think we are. Okay. We will see you again next time. Happy reading.